Hi folks, Torpedo Heat here. Today we're going to make a video on the air compressor on low pressure heaters. It's called a rotary vane pump. So video's courtesy of torpedoheatparts.com, and we got some parts here that we're going to show you what they are and how to put an air compressor back together and have it working properly. Okay, so there's a few adjustments you have to make when you're doing an air compressor, and one of them is this plate. I know a lot of you have seen this plate. I got different ones here. Okay, that's a Desa plate there, and that's a small heater. You see it's got a small air outlet. This is a Pinnacle product. Okay, and this product has a little bit bigger of an air outlet, and that's the teardrop shaped rotor cover. These are called rotor covers and exhaust manifolds. Okay, the proper name for it is exhaust manifold. Okay, so we're going to get started. Here's one, super common. I know you guys, a lot of people out there have seen this one. You see this when you go to change your filters and tune up your heater. This one is reconditioned. As you can see, it's nice and shiny and smooth on the back. It was all scored up, and we reconditioned that here at torpedoheatparts.com so that you can put it on your heater and go instead of having to do any work. Okay, so we want to tell you first, we're going to show you how to put an air compressor together, but we want to tell you first of what this part is and what exactly what it does. Okay, so here we have 6 screws. Turn this over, I'm sorry. 6 holes for 6 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those screws hold that on to the back of the motor. Okay, then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 holes with threads in them, and that holds the filter cover on there, which obviously isn't here. I've already removed that off the motor as well. But then you have this screw here, this hole here, and this hole here. This one is the intake. This is where the air comes in at, and this is where the air goes out at. Okay, air comes out of here, fluctuates in this area right here that I'm at here, and then makes it out here, which is the exhaust port, where you would screw your fitting on, your air fitting. So let's talk about the back side of this here. I don't know how well you can see this. I hope you can see it good, obviously, but this cover has a slot here, a longer slot, and there's your intake hole. That little bitty hole right there, that's your intake hole. Here's your exhaust. Okay, and that's smaller because it's under pressure, and there's your exhaust hole on those holes that I was showing you earlier. Okay, so the smaller slot is your exhaust, and that's over by the air outlet hole. Your intake slot is the longer slot, and that's on the opposite side. Those slots are about a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch deep, something like that. Okay, now do you see with this camera where the rotor has been rubbing on this plate? Okay, this isn't really bad plate. I've seen it much worse, but the rotor's been rubbing right along here. All this whole area here gets scored up from that rotor making contact with this plate. I'll show you that when I rebuild the compressor. Okay, if you can see, the rotor covers this exhaust port completely, and when it comes around here, it covers the intake port completely. Okay, so your rotor has to be covering those 2 holes completely. That one you couldn't see real well, but here at torpedoheatparts.com, we got all kinds of new and used parts. So this one you can see a little bit better. Here's the ring. Around here you can see where your rotor's been riding. You can see your rotor's been contacting this face all around this area. But if you look at the circle, it goes right over top of that exhaust port. and then bring it around. You can see where the rotor comes around, and it comes around and covers that intake port, okay? And the rest of this stuff here that you see is the indentation from the pump ring, okay? So that's a older DESA product. This one here is the new one, and the rotor kit would obviously, it's been reconditioned. The rotor hasn't been on it yet, but the rotor would run right outside this lip and right outside this lip, okay? That's where that would go. And then we got a Pinnacle product, okay? Yeah, you can, hopefully you can see that pretty good, okay? The scoring from the rotor goes around here, and if you see right there, it comes around, covers that port up, comes back around here, and covers that port up there, and goes around. So you can see the area there where the rotor rubs, and you can see that those ports are within that area of the rotor. The rest of this gobbledygook on the outside don't matter. Okay, that's your smaller slot, your exhaust port under pressure, and that's on the air outlet side. The intake slot is bigger, and it's not under any pressure, obviously. Okay, so once again, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes to hold that rotor cover or exhaust manifold to the back of the motor. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 holes to hold your filter cover on there. This one only has 3 holes. 1, 2, 3, because it's a different filter cover. Okay, so those are different parts. You got your air outlet, you got your intake, and you got your exhaust. Okay, problem is, when you're putting this on the motor, you can't see inside of it, so you don't really know where that manifold has to sit to actually get air pressure out of that rotary vane pump, because that's what this whole assembly is called. It's a rotary vane pump. You don't know where this has to sit because you can't see the back side of it. Just like here, you can't see the tip of my pen sticking back there because it's covered up. So we're gonna take a compressor apart for you and rebuild it. Actually, we're not going to rebuild it because it's junk, but it's a perfect specimen. And all these rotary vane pumps are similar. Okay, so it's not something that's way different from one than from the other. Okay, they're similar. Actually, the 6 holes are very similar to the almost universal. Okay, so let's see if we got our camera going here, which we don't. And we'll get him in the camera there and zoom in one time. Okay, and spin this around. Sorry about the camera work, folks, but I don't have a camera person. Okay, so anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws to hold that onto the back of the motor. There's your air outlet, your intake hole right here, and your exhaust port, your exhaust hole. The air comes out of there, floats through this whole area here, and makes its way out of that hole there after the air has been filtered. Okay, very, very important to filter your air. All right, so that's how those work, and it's really pretty simple. Now, we already have a lot of this stuff taken loose because we want to save some time in the video. So here we go. I got to take these 6 screws off to get this cover off of here. When you put this back on, you do it very carefully, and you stagger the bolts, and you get them down there nice and even and smooth. You don't crank one side down and then put the other side down. You put them all down nice and smooth and even. I don't want to lose my bolts there. This motor here with this double diamond shape on both sides, this double diamond rotor cover. This motor here is from a thermal heat. Okay, and it was a 55-70K BTU, but the setup is about the same. So let's look at this rotor cover. Perfect. Perfect. Look at that. You can see right where the rotor's been running, right around, covering up both those exhaust ports. See right there where it comes off that exhaust port? See right there? It covers that whole thing. This whole area here is where the rotor's been making contact. Okay? So we got those 6 screws off, and inside we got the rotor kit. Okay? We got to take that out. So we're going to do it, since we're rebuilding the whole thing, we're going to take this pump ring off. Okay. And move it out of the way. I already loosened all this stuff up for the video so that I could save a little time. Okay. And then we got the pump ring off of there. And our vanes come out of there. See how those vanes fall out of there? And that's good. So you pull that rotor off of there. Okay, so you have a rotor, 4 vanes, and a drive key, which is right there. Okay, so that's your drive key. I gotta adjust the camera again so you can see it. You took the ring off, this pump ring. You took these 4 vanes out. You took this rotor out here, right here. Okay, and you took this drive key off. All right, that's what's inside the rotor kit. All right, inside the pump, rotary vane pump. I'm sorry. Now, all this whole area here, when you rebuilding this like this, needs to be clean. See, the outside is shiny and clean. This whole area needs to be nice and smooth and clean. Okay, so we're going to take our rotor and our drive key, stick the drive key back in the rotor, and set that on the side so that those 2 pieces are together. We're going to take and we're going to put our pump ring back and start that one. Get this one. Now this pump ring has to be smooth and shiny when you put it back. Everything in this whole assembly has to be smooth and shiny. See this pump ring here? This is another used pump ring. It's all boogered up. Okay, if you can see the inside where some of those boogers are, some of that stuff, and like you see that rust, if you can see that rust around there, see there's some of that stuff inside of there. You got to clean that up with some non-scratch Comet or Ajax or whatever you got there, and clean that up all nice and shiny, but you don't want to scratch it. Okay, so I got my rotor with the drive key in it. Remember, I just put the drive key in it. I'm going to take and set that on there. Got to find the spot. Okay, and set that on there. Okay, now, you see this play in this ring? Goes up and down, and it goes sideways. It has more play if I loosen the screw just a touch more. They're already loose, but there you go. See that play? Okay. You have to adjust that play out of there. And to do that, the factory says that you have to do it on the high side of one of the lobes. So that's right in the middle of one of the lobes by this screw. And this gap right here, okay, this gap right here between the screw and the top of the rotor, that gap in that ring right there has to be 3 to 5 thousandths. Okay, has to be. Not going to get around it. So you see how much you can pull it up. I got a piece of paper that I folded in half, and I set that right there by the screw it's all the way in, and I take and I snug this ring down just a little, just so that it don't move. Okay, and I pull that out of there, and I check it, and the fan blade is hidden, but the rotor spins freely. Okay, so that's adjusted, and you got approximately 3 to 5 thousandths of a gap between that top section of the pump ring and the rotor. Okay, so that's how you adjust that. Now you got your ring adjusted, you got your rotor kit put back in. Now you got to put your 4 vanes back. 1, 2, 2, 3. You got to put those back in there. These vanes go in here flush. See, that's flush. That's flush. When you don't put them in flush, like this one, it goes in too far. See that gap in there? Okay, there's a gap. You see that? You see this one is flush. See that gap in there? That allows air to escape over that, and it won't work. Okay, so I'm going to take that out. I'm going to turn that around. Now it's flush, and put the last one in. It's flush as well. Okay, now I got my vanes in there. They're flush. These vanes have to fall when I spin this around. Okay, see that vane fall? See that vane fall? It's falling about right there. See that vane fall? Okay, this vane is inside the rotor, but when it comes around, it falls. See that? So all your vanes have to be loose so they continue to fall like that. And then when the motor's spinning, the vanes really fly, and they're going in and out and in and out, and that's how it makes the pressure. Okay, and just like on the manifold, set that here, approximately here, in this small area here is where the intake of the air, small area here in the exhaust port. Okay, all right, so you got your rotor kit in there with the vanes that fall freely. You've adjusted your pump ring. Okay, so now it's time to put your rotor cover back on there. So let's not put it on backwards. Put that on there. See if I can get a screw started. Okay, and then I gotta put the 6 of them on there. There we go, start that one. Jeez, it's kind of tough doing this. I don't want to block the camera. They have all these parts and all the parts you need for your torpedo heater at torpedoheatparts.com. You can get the phone number off the website. You can send them an email. You can do whatever you want to do. They deal in new and used parts. So no matter what you got, what you need, they can usually find something that's going to work and make your heater, get your heater going. Okay, so got to leave these loose just a little so that I can adjust this plate. All right, so I know I'm going slowly, folks, but bear with me, please. Bear with me one moment. I got 2 more to go. Adjusting this plate is actually the whole key. Adjusting that ring and adjusting this plate is the key to being able to get an air pressure out of your heater. It don't matter how many new parts you put in. You can put all the new parts in the world you want put in there. If you don't put them together properly, it won't work. Okay, See that plate wiggles up and down, and it cocks from side to side. That little bit of play and that little bit of motion has to be adjusted out. Okay, now what I was telling you before was, see, the rotor kit that's covering these holes is inside here in the backside. It's inside this pump ring now, and you can't see the backside to make sure that rotor's sitting in the right spot. So what you have to do is you need to have something like, I love dental picks because I can actually stick it in that hole, and it's so small it'll tell me the whole edge. Okay, the whole edge of where that rotor's sitting at. Okay, so I take my flashlight and I shine it in this hole, and I'm looking in this hole. I'm looking in this hole here, and I'm looking in this hole here, because I already showed you that on the back side of that rotor, those two holes have to be covered. Okay, and this one is the Dynaglow Pro Temp. I'm poking around the edges, make sure the whole rotor kit is covered. Okay, and it seems to be covered just by sitting on there, which is a pretty good design. Now let's see what happens there. Now see, I just adjusted that a little bit and moved that. Now my pick goes all the way in there. See that? If you have that gap in there, it won't work. Okay, so I'm going to let it sit again and let it rest and relax. I'm going to stick my pick in there, and that gap is gone. It won't go in any further. Okay, check the exhaust port. Rotor Covers kit's completely covered. Okay, so at that point I take and I snug a couple of them down, going around, and then I wind up tightening them all down, staggering them, you know, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Don't crank one side down and then crank the other side down. Make them all nice and even. Okay, so then when you're tightening them down like that and you're staggering your bolts the whole while, you want to be making sure, see, that your fan is spinning. And I can feel that fan, and I can hear those vanes flying in there, going in and out, that you put in there flush, and I can hear it going pop, pop, pop. So that one is perfect, and it's getting ready to spit plenty of air out when that motor spins. But then, okay, so I didn't tighten these down all the way, these 6, but let's just say that I did, and I'm done with that. Now I take my pick and I put the tip in there, and I'm checking the edge, okay, and they're completely covering the rotor kit. Okay, completely covering. There is no gap where I can stick my pick down in there. Okay, so that's how you adjust this manifold. Okay, because if you don't adjust it that way, you only get maybe 2 or 3 pounds pressure. If you put the vanes in wrong, if you adjust this plate wrong, you'll get 5 or 6 pounds pressure, but it won't be true pressure, so you won't be able to actually use that 5 or 6 pounds. And then again, just to show you, the rotor has to ride all the way around, covering both of those holes and both those slots. So they're all the same, whether it's this small one, this double diamond shaped one, the Master Pro Temp Pinnacle product. Okay, the rotor runs around the ports on all of them. So since you can't see in there from this side, the back side back here, because it's inside that ring, it's all closed up, you have to look inside those holes. And I showed you the pick went in too far when it was in the wrong position, and I showed you that just that little bit of play will throw off your air compressor. So that part is actually called an exhaust manifold, because the exhaust comes out of here. It does cover the rotor, so they call it a rotor cover, and it also covers the pump ring, so you could call it a pump ring cover, but it's really an exhaust manifold. So anyway, folks, that's how you rebuild an air compressor on a torpedo heater that has a rotary vane pump. These types of pumps are on heaters that are 215,000 BTUs and lower, and these are for low pressure units. and it's called a rotary vane pump. Okay, folks, well, we hope we helped somebody there today, and we hope you enjoyed the video, and we appreciate it here at torpedoheatparts.com. And oh yeah, I'll give you the spiel. Please like, share, thumbs up, all that for the video. It makes me feel good. So anyway, thanks folks, and as usual, you have a good day.